I thought about commenting on the situation with the US Capitol in Washington, D.C., in the Judicial Hall, where they shot, porno basically, which, not the first time, not the last time probably when we see the manifestations of the dying empire and the disintegrating culture. But what can I say? There are more important events, of course, in the world, and let other outlets discuss this issue. But that just tells you basically who are those people and who work for them. Do not want to use the broad brush, so to speak, and paint over everybody. But I mean, this is just basically the zeitgeist, the spirit of time. And when you look at this, it's just you have to scratch your head, and you understand why Vladimir Putin speaking to the press yesterday, he says, yeah, I was a little bit naive about the combined West in the early 2000s. So we all were, many Russians were, me included. But then again, when we immigrated to the United States, we immigrated to a completely different country. The country which we immigrated to, which many people constantly ask, oh, why do you stay here? Well, because we already landed here. It's our home. It's our country. But the point is, the country we saw and immigrated to in 1990s and what we have today, I don't recognize the country I live in anymore. I just don't. It's different country. So, but speaking of which, of course, Vladimir Putin speaking about him being naive about combined West early 2000s and even into the 2010s. He also basically reacting to yet another basically trash. I mean, what can I explain how to call those things? It's trash, basically. Everything which emanates from and radiates from Biden administration, which basically destroys the United States and tries to unleash the World War III. And Putin says Russia has no plans to attack NATO, dismisses Biden remarks as nonsense. And yeah, the only thing they produce are nonsense. Military, political, economic, it's all nonsense. Basically, the whole American establishment itself is the representation of a nonsense. And here what, Kremlin chief Vladimir Putin dismissed as complete nonsense remarks by US President Joe Biden that Russia would attack a NATO country if it won the war in Ukraine, adding that Russia had no interest in fighting the NATO military alliance. It is clear all those things that what Putin says are true, because it is clear for anybody who has any degree of real professional background in military and real geopolitics, which implies for the most part, pardon me, some military experience or intelligence experience. It doesn't mean that it guarantees that you will get it right, but it's actually a requirement, minimal requirement, imperative essentially. So, and when we talk about this, and especially the garbage which Mr. Biden produces, we certainly can go and look at what was the basically situation with Vladimir Putin's press conference a few days ago. And you have to admit, this is very clear that you cannot talk to Western media, I mean corporate media. Here we have one of the photos from this press conference about the BBC guy who tries, and 4 hours, no questions have been taken from BBC. And why would you take any questions from BBC? Or as Mr. Peskov, who was distributing, so to speak, the questions from press on that press conference, he basically pointed out to Chinese Xinhua agency ahead of New York Times, and as Mr. Lavrov, foreign minister of Russia, stated a couple of years ago when he was asked some question from CNN, he just straightforward stated to him, oh, write anything you want. You're gonna lie it anyway if I answer you. So there you go. So why do you communicate with those people? And when you look at this situation with this indeed nonsense which Biden administration spews, and when you understand that basically the war is over, it's worth pointing out some important things which people say, oh, why do you constantly repeat this point? I will continue to repeat this point non-stop, because this is what makes it so terrifying to observe how the country, that means United States, is like the runaway train, and when you look at the people who run it into the ground. Let's go to Mr. George Galloway with his wonderful show, and he spoke yesterday to Mr. Colonel McGregor, and he was explaining, and you have to watch this, actually, this interview, because it is crucial, and because Douglas McGregor, although I disagree with him on many fundamental points, for example, in terms of the operations of the Red Army in World War II, I mean, American military simply doesn't know what they are, and Colonel McGregor is not exception, but I mean, he is the man of principles, he is the man of courage, and obviously he has some grasp, serious grasp of the modern warfare, and he was talking about that basically that Ukraine was a vanity project for Washington because none in the Washington know how to fight the war, and he was talking about this arrogance, and then he drops this basically bomb that actually American generals never studied real warfare, they don't study military profession, which is absolutely true, and I've been onto this for many years now. Another matter that I was kinda, staying within the framework of decorum, general military decorum. People actually accused me of being the corporatist when I was talking about American military, saying that, you know what, why do you go and kinda, go soft on them? Well, because, you have to consider all things which come into the play, and, for example, yeah, America loses its wars. I mean, America cannot fight a peer enemy. It's simply not designed for this. It is primarily expeditionary imperial force, which is, as Mr. Austin already promised us, yet another America's war against Houthis in Yemen. But we know what kind of war it's going to be. Special operations inserted there, flying, those missions non-stop from the aircraft carrier and bombing stuff. That's the only really what they can do. But, and here comes the question. While I wasn't, kind of preserving the decorum, after the start of special military operation, as I already stated, I was in shock, and not me only. Very many Russian professionals, military professionals, and much higher level than me, they were astounded, they were shocked, they had their jaw on the floor when they understand the gaping incompetence of pretty much everybody who runs military in the United States. And to demonstrate to you why Mr. McGregor says that American generals do not study military profession. Again, you cannot study military profession when you even one of the fundamental elements, not all of it, but I mean one of the crucial elements, which is military history, is not studied properly. They basically study mythology there, starting from West Point, going into the US Army War College and what have you. It is all mythology about America winning the World War II, America defeating Wehrmacht and things like that. This is simply not true. But here we have the Exhibit A. Exhibit A about people who actually are American officers of the highest level officers, which are, in Russia it's called highest officers. These are senior officers, top brass. And to demonstrate to you why they don't study anything, let's start with the predictions of such guy as Mr. Ben Hodges. And we will start from, you remember who Ben Hodges is. He was the supreme commander of the US forces and, NATO forces in Europe. And here's one of his predictions. As you can see yourself, it is Friday, 11 November 2022. Former U.S. Army General Ben Hodges predicts failure in Ukraine could lead to the collapse of Russian Federation. And look what he predicts. The disintegration of the Russian state might sound like a dramatic prediction, but that's exactly where some experts say Vladimir Putin's war with Ukraine could be heading. One of those so-called experts is, of course, retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, a former commander of the U.S. Army in Europe, believes Russia's failure to successfully defeat Ukraine could be the beginning of the end for the Russian Federation. That was November 2022, a year ago. Let's go and take a look at other prediction by Mr. Hodges. Then here it is. Retired Lieutenant General predicts when Russia will lose Crimea. That was already December 12, 2022, which is also a year ago. Retired US Lieutenant General Ben Hodges predicted on Monday that Ukraine's army will be able to seize control of the occupied Crimea Peninsula by August 2023. That means what? 3 months ago. As the war-torn country continues to counter Russian ongoing invasion. That was the other prediction by Lieutenant General Ben Hodges. And then, of course, we have this prediction by Ben Hodges. And as you can see yourself, it was already in May 12, 2023. It was 6 months ago. A former U.S. Army general predicts successful Ukrainian offensive. Ukraine's long-anticipated counteroffensive against Russia will ultimately succeed, a former commanding general of U.S. Army Europe told NPR's Morning Edition on Friday. This is Ben Hodges. This is his professional level. Now, not to be outdone, just few days ago, speaking to this sewer, which is National Public Radio, Times Radio, they all are, they all garbage. I mean, people who work there are garbage, and basically the whole, most of the American corporate media is just basically a sewer. But here it is, here's the guy, 3 days ago, he talks that the Kerch Bridge must be destroyed in 2023, Lieutenant Ben Hodges. Well, we have to understand, he can put whatever the books he wants on the background behind. I don't think so, he read most of them anyway, and he certainly doesn't know Russia, he doesn't know Russian language, he doesn't understand Russia, and he doesn't understand what modern warfare is and what is the strategic logistics is. Because obviously, unlike the United States, Russia has the actually whole war college, 2-year additional education of the Academy of General Khrushchev, which does only rear services and logistics. Because logistics which Russians did, I mean, you have to be really serious not to appreciate this effort. And of course, as usually in most of the corporate media, it was actually described absolutely differently, absolutely 180 degrees. Or 360 degrees, as Annalena Baerbock says, that, oh yeah, Russians fail at logistics and things of this nature. Well, yeah, wishful thinking. As always, they projected what they cannot do, but hey. And here is the situation which supports my thesis that most of them don't understand what they are talking about because they are just illiterate, militarily illiterate. They do not understand real logistics. They do not understand geography. They do not understand real modern warfare of the 21st century. And so to explain to this guy who is obsessed with the basically Kerch Bridge, that's his level, to try to bomb something, what especially civilian use, because he really thinks that Kerch Bridge is somehow the absolutely crucial thing with which you destroy it, Russians will collapse and give up the basically Crimea. I mean, these are wet dreams of all those Pentagon generals and admirals because they have no clue what modern warfare is. They never fought it. They never won anything in their lives. They lose all their wars to the guys in sandals and turbans with AK-74s, but they love this, PR. They know how to suck it up, and what in Russian called parquet generals. And so here's the situation which demonstrates to you why Mr. Ben Hodges has no clue what he's talking about. Here is the, in Russian, it's the project, as you can see yourself, of the new railway. As you can see yourself, it is all along the basically shores of the Azov Sea, and there are two colors there. One red, which is the projected railroad, which will be finished by the end of 2024, and there is from Rostov-Don another black. In the black color, another basically branch of the railroad, which is not in a very good conditions, but it still works. And as you can see yourself, it supplies Crimea, but doing so, it also supplies a Russian basically rear, which is in Mariupol, Berdyansk, and Melitopol. So Russians already have no problems with supplying troops and supplying Crimea if it comes down to it. And the fact is that Mr. Ben Hodges wants to kill, so to speak, to destroy Kerch Bridge. It just shows to you that he has no idea how modern armies supplied and what is Russian logistic structure. Not to speak about the fact that there are many roads and Russia has tremendous amount of trucks which can deliver anything from the heavy equipment to what have you. So, and yeah, this shows you, and the building or construction of the brand new Red Line modern railroad started yesterday. It was officially launched, and as I already stated, Russians are extremely good at producing basically the modern railroads, and it will be finished, I believe it's 250 kilometers long. It will be finished by the end of 2024, but there are many civilian, let alone dual-use projects, which Russians do actually before the end of the terms, which are basically described in the contracts. They beat the terms. They do it earlier, and it's a great quality. So yeah, good luck for Ben Hodges dreaming about basically, just blowing the bridge. That's the level of his strategic understanding of the war. And again, you shouldn't be surprised with this. When you look at all those Petraeuses, all those Ben Hodgeses, all those generals who so-called expert, they come out and parade themselves on the TV and all kinds of the interviews as clowns, people who have no idea about what they're talking about. And when I say, I used to say that they wouldn't be allowed to command a battalion in Russian army, I thought it was a little bit kind of, stretching it. Now I firmly believe, give them a brigade to command, they will screw it up. They have no idea, let alone they don't understand how to command modern 21st century Russian army corps, let alone army, let alone to operate something on the level of the general staff. Those people are not good. This plain and simple. And that's what has been in the front of our eyes for many years. So yeah, this is expeditionary force who knows only how to basically fight the third world countries and third world militaries. And there you go. And Ben Hodges is just one example of that, but when you begin to listen to this garbage, basically, they spew daily, promising what already is over militarily for Ukraine, but they promising that they have the new plan for, Ukraine, and you know what, Ukraine will sustain this war, and well, sure, you go to the people who are even more incompetent than American generals, you go to Germans, and of course, we know that Bundeswehr is a joke. And look at this. Suddenly we have, this clown Julian Assange. He is a journalist. He has no clue what he's talking about. But here, as you can see yourself, he talks to Bild. It's a tabloid, as most corporate media are in the combined West. And he's talking about that, the new plan for war for Ukraine. And he is talking about that Ukrainians are now preparing for the new plan. And you ask yourself what kind of plan that might be. And here you have it. It's yesterday, and Ukraine planning new counteroffensive. Die Welt explains it. They're Germans. Kyiv still has big plans underpinned by Western equipment not yet destroyed, the report says. I mean, they're Germans. They are, I have really kind of sympathy to Germans, to what have been done to them. And yeah, they have imbeciles who, it's basically most of German elite are imbeciles, illiterate people, all their military specialists, I joke, all of them, without exception. Well, they, pretty much normal people, they cannot even speak normally, but here it is, they say that not yet destroyed. That's the kind of key phrase, because it will be destroyed once it appears, like 3 Challenger tanks tried to appear on the battlefield, they were all gone. But here it is. In an interview with Germany Daily, Nikolay, maybe, I don't know how to pronounce him correctly, a former German defense official who is now a senior fellow at the Munich Security Conference, suggested that despite the growing pessimism in the West about Ukraine's progress on the battlefield, Kyiv still maintains a decent amount of military equipment, with more deliveries expected to arrive from the West. And he says that Ukraine is probably gathering resources for new counteroffensive next year. Probably? Sure. We already know that Ukraine tries now to go to the strategic defense because they have no resources, and it doesn't matter whatever pittance combined West will be providing to Ukraine. And let's take a look who this Nikolay is, or Nikolay. Here you can see yourself that the guy was born 23 March 1975. That means that, okay, let's count. So it is 25 years. He is at 2000. So by the age of 35, Bundeswehr was turned into the toy army with people having no clue what they do there. But here it is. He was born in 1975 in Berlin and studied, and here it goes, political science at the University of Greifswald. As part of military service, he served in Bosnia and Herzegovina and in Kosovo. In other words, the guy has absolutely zero background, despite the fact that we probably have been squeezed into the army to get him some kind of the military background. Look, we can take a look at his other part of his CV, and as you can see yourself, he is Nikolay is non-resident senior fellow with the Transatlantic Defense and Security Program at the Center for European Policy Analysis. In other words, Atlanticist globalist think tank, which basically, abuse the sinecures there, providing all kind of the garbage under the pretense that it's analytical garbage. Nico is also a senior fellow of the Munich Security Conference in Berlin and Munich. He teaches at the chair of military history at the University of Potsdam and at the Hertie School of Governance. His research topics are the Russian war against Ukraine, new technologies in security and defense, and cybersecurity. Here's the guy who probably ran there some junior officer level, if not enlisted, in Bundeswehr. He has degree in political science. He has zero STEM background. So his research in new technologies is worthless garbage, because he won't understand how those technologies operate and how they integrated in the modern battlefield. But this is pretty much what you're beginning to understand also about American generals. And here's the same guy, of the same quality, of the same lack of any intellectual capacity. And you know what, when you look obviously at the German government and you look at Annalena's Baerbock's, of those Mr. Bach, let alone the, as they call him, liver sausage, Mr. Scholz, what do you expect? You expect people who have no clue. And so here's this guy spewing this garbage about that Ukraine probably is preparing for the counteroffensive. He better start learning real military science. And that starts, my gosh, with the natural sciences, STEM, engineering, military engineering, mathematics, physics, theory of operations, statistics, things of this nature. And then of course you go to military technology, which requires serious engineering background. But you have those political scientists, the same people of the same qualities as what we had is, and so on the, on the table in the judicious hall in the Capitol, couple of guys going at it, That's the level. That's their level, their moral convictions. They are globalist people without clue about anything outside their, teeny-weeny echo chamber. Because they support each other, because without any supporting themselves, and, this kind of I rub your back, you rub mine, or scratch your back, you scratch mine, they are worthless. They are worthless. They won't be allowed to do any serious activity which has benefit to the society, including, especially so, a very complex field of the military science and basically how you operate modern militaries in the modern 21st century war. Those guys are basically, it's Apple type, I know, so now people, Apple people will just basically chew my head off. But point is, these are what they are, and what do you expect from them? And if that hasn't been enough, there is obviously the other thing which we have to kind of briefly review, and we have to remind I have to remind you, obviously, about Dostoevsky and his writer's diary, where he described the so-called Slavic brothers of Russia. Believe me, it is very unpleasant towards them, how to put it politely, characterization. And let me put it this way, Dostoevsky wasn't a good geopolitical thinker. He was primarily, there's a mystic and Orthodox Christian, philosophy in it. It's definitely there. But in terms of geopolitics, he wasn't exactly, top-notch. Yet his characterization of all those, Slavs, and, what Russia was trying to free them in 19th century was spot on. And so now to demonstrate to you why he put this out, you can easily find this. Just go to Google and Google Dostoevsky about Slavs. I'm sure you will find this text fascinating. And here's the proof of it, that basically they're not brothers. Most of them, they hate Russia, and Russians shouldn't be even dealing with them anymore. And that's good. This is what it's coming to now. And as you can see yourself, here's the a few days ago, as Bulgaria is dismantles monument to its World War II liberation from Hitler by, of course, Red Army. And as you can see yourself, according to whatever Bulgarian agency, the sculpture features on the monument will be restored and then displayed at the Museum of Socialist Art, or eventually maybe moved to another site. And commenting on the move, MEP from the pro-European party Da Bulgaria, yes Bulgaria, Ivailo Mircha stated, "We are not just removing a monument, we are reclaiming the opportunity to make sense of history through our own prism rather than that of Russian propaganda." I agree. This is what they do, and there is a video of those MPs actually in Bulgarian parliament calling US Embassy. And actually different parties were calling U.S. Embassy to trying to run what, by the U.S. Embassy, what they have to vote for or against. Then this is the part of the issue with the United States, because the United States cannot tolerate the real history of the World War II, that it was the Red Army which defeated Hitler and liberated those countries. They cannot resign themselves that, both for the complex of inferiority, because United States came in when basically the whole deal have been decided, and secondly, the Russians always get in the way. Those damn Ruskies, they just win the biggest war in history of humanity. They lead world, into space exploration, build the best education system in the world, restore the country from rebel. These are the feats United States is not capable of, really, except for the obviously competing in the space. And now, when the whole thing was of this mythology of the United States military power, always grossly exaggerated, have been blown out of the water, the only thing they have is petty actions like, let's remove their monuments, especially from Bulgaria. And I can tell you, let's do it. And I was on it for a long time. Russia has to remove all monuments of the Red Army from the European soil. And basically I am voting for this and vying for this and promoting this idea. A full Iron Curtain has to be built between Europe and Russians, not between Russians and United States, despite the depravity of the American establishment, because the United States, by the virtue of it being nuclear superpower, which is going completely nuts and off the rails, you need to communicate with it. You need to deal with the United States. And again, this is the fate of the superpowers. Both United States and Russia are superpowers. Another matter that United States is declining and Russia is ascending greatly, but still they have to communicate. But Europeans, just Iron Curtain. I mean, they shouldn't remember Russians. They can go to hell, and that's what is the point which I am on the record for 10 years once I went public, that never again this foot of Russian soldier have to be in Europe. And this is essentially what Vladimir Putin also stated today when he called this Biden's nonsense and garbage, which he spews constantly about Russia. And the point is, Russians don't care. If the Europe turns in the caliphate, hell with it, let it turn it. Turks begin to genocide Bulgarians, let them do it. Russia has no business dealing with Europeans and Europe anymore. culturally, these are absolutely basically opposite in terms of values or what Russia stands for. And you know what? As I already stated, I'm beginning, not only me, most Russians actually, beginning so sick and tired of this excuse. Oh, we didn't elect this, we didn't do this. No, you did. You elected Germans, you elected Grüne, you elected all those social democrats, you elected all those so-called left, they're not left, they're neoliberal globalist parties. You elected them. They gave you the Annalena Baerbock types, and they gave you all those just absolutely traitors, which killing what's left of Germany. And the same goes for France, same goes for Bulgaria. They can go to hell for all Russians care. And there you go. There are no friends, there are no, and the fact that they have some like 10% of the population who are sympathetic towards Russia, well, too bad. You know, yeah, Russians do not abandon those people. They will be, their doors will be open for them. But for the most part, to talk with who? And that's the issue. And again, the same as France. Let France continue to elect all those, globalist boys. There's very little is remaining of France, and I, on the record, you can, if honestly, I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong because obviously I have some cultural attachment to the French culture and things of this nature. But I mean, France is done. It's over. French will not exist as people probably by 2050. So, and I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong on that, but I think so that's where it is all going.